Good morning, Year 2. It's Miss White here. We're really excited because we're starting a new unit with you at home and you will recognise this story. We're going to revisit The Woods, which was one of the first pieces of writing you did with us in Year 2 all the way back in September. So I'm going to read you just part of the story to refresh your memory, but your task on Monday is to read the story at home and identify the expanded noun phrases. I'll go through the grid with you after I've read the start of the story. Every night before bed, I turn on my nightlight, read a story, curl up under a blanket and give my bunny a hug. But last night I couldn't find my bunny anywhere. There was only one place left to look. I had to go into the woods. And I wasn't afraid at all until I ran into a big, scary brown bear. But the bear was just afraid of the dark, so I shared my nightlight with him. Then the big brown bear followed me deeper into the woods. And we weren't afraid at all until we ran into two scary giants. But the giants were just bored, so I shared my bedtime story with them. Then the giants and the big brown bear followed me deeper into the woods. And we weren't afraid at all until we ran into a scary, fire-breathing, triple-headed dragon. But the dragon just had a stomachache, so I gave him a hug. Now, what you're going to be doing this week is you are going to be rewriting the story. You can keep the same setting going into the woods, and if it's easier, you can keep the same storyline. So you can have your first character being afraid of the dark, so you can share your nightlight. Your next character can be bored, so you can share your bedtime story with them. You can also have your character having a stomachache. It's up to you. Your big focus this week is on your expanded noun phrases. So you're going to be choosing new characters and describing them for your reader. Now we're just going to look at the grid. So just a reminder, all of you should be aiming to achieve the criteria in the green section. And if you want to have a bit of a challenge, you look at what's written in the yellow section. So our big focus this week is our language features. So you're going to be having another lesson on expanded noun phrases, and we're using those to add some detail before the noun. As a bit of a challenge, if you want to, you can expand your noun afterwards using prepositions. So you can, I'll add some of that in when I write my story so that you understand. Please make sure that you're writing in the past tense, just like in the story, and we didn't have to focus on this so much in poetry. Please look carefully at particularly your use of full stops and capital letters this week. So I've started my story. I'm just going to show you here. So I haven't copied from the very beginning because we don't need to. Our big focus is on when our character goes into the woods. So I've written, I couldn't find my bunny anywhere. There was only one place left to look. I went into the woods. I wasn't afraid at all until, now this is where we can change. So I've changed from the bear to an enormous, terrifying dragon. We're going to have use of a word mat again this week. Notice how I've used synonyms, so I haven't said big and scary. I'm trying to up-level my words. I've written, the dragon was afraid of the dark, so I shared my nightlight with him. So I have, again, magpied this part. You're more than welcome to change it so that the dragon might have another reason that he's upset. But the big focus, as I say, is on your choice of characters and how you describe them. Then the enormous, terrifying dragon followed me into the woods. We weren't afraid at all until we ran into... Now, if we look back at the book, now back in September, we did look at the pattern. If you remember, we start with our character having just one. So we've got one brown bear. The next set of characters, we have 2, so the 2 giants. We move on to a triple-headed dragon, so it goes 1, 2, 3. You can follow this pattern this week if you want to. You do not have to. So I am going to write here, we ran into 2. Now I'm going to choose my noun first. So I've done a dragon. I could do a giant if I wanted to, but I'm going to choose to do trolls. So at the moment I've just written 2 trolls. Now, you're going to have time to plan this. So in my initial plan, I wrote 2 ugly, smelly trolls. We can up-level these words. So I'm going to change ugly to hideous. And I could still have smelly. I could change it if I wanted to stinky. It's up to you. Until we ran into 2 hideous, stinky trolls. Now, if I read my sentence back, and you think back to our grid, I have made some errors with my full stops and capital letters. So, if you listen, remember a really good way of checking for full stops is to read your work back to you. And if you have to pause for a bit of a breath, normally that would mean you either need a comma or a full stop. So listen carefully. Then the enormous, terrifying dragon followed me into the woods. We weren't afraid at all until we ran into 2 hideous, stinky trolls. So if you notice after woods, I paused for breath, so I'm going to put my full stop and I must always then follow it with a capital letter. Another way of checking, remember when we did this in class, you're thinking about how many verbs you've put in each sentence. So here I've got followed me into the woods, and then here we've got 2, so we've got we were not afraid until we ran into, but we've got a conjunction here. This is something where if you read it aloud to someone at home, it's going to really help you edit and improve as well. Now, I'm going to stick to the same theme as the story, and I'm going to write here, the trolls were bored, so I gave them a bedtime story. And then if we look back at the text, we always have a list of the characters. So I'm going to reuse my noun phrases here. So I'm going to write, then the 2 hideous, stinky trolls and the, so let's look back how I described my dragon, enormous, terrifying dragon. Now please remember when you do expanded noun phrases, it's adjective, comma, adjective, noun. Dragon followed me deeper into the woods. We weren't, now we did this with our spellings, our use of apostrophes here, because this is a contraction, so it's short for were not. We weren't afraid at all until we ran into a, now this is where, for those of you that want a bit of a challenge, I'm going to show you how you could expand your noun phrase after the noun, so using a preposition. Now, preposition doesn't necessarily have to be where they are, it could be with. With is a very good word when you are expanding a noun. So we weren't afraid at all until we ran into a, I like the idea of the triple-headed. Now, I'm going to say the triple-headed black dog. I've just watched Harry Potter, so it's a bit like the big black dog at the beginning of the first film. So we ran into a triple-headed black dog. Now, great way to expand your nouns with, and I can think of something that he might have. So he's going to be a triple-headed black dog with red eyes. I'm going to put an exclamation mark there because that does sound quite scary. What I'm going to carry on doing is following through with the rest of the story. So my triple-headed scary dog is going to have a tummy ache. So I'm going to give him a hug. You can carry on and work your way through to the end of the story as long as you've written and introduced the first 3 characters. But just to remind you of the rest of the story, which you're going to read on Monday, they all go further into the woods. They reach the cave. And it's a very big, hairy, scary monster that's taken Bunny. Now, you can change this if you want to as well. And if you remember, it's very sad, the monster's lonely. But then at the end of the story, they all go back together. So just to remind you again, guys, once more, here's the grid. Big focus this week, language features, your expanded noun phrases, and your use of full stops and capital letters. Please again keep up the work on your handwriting. Use letter join to help you and have a bit of practice. And feel free to magpie as many ideas from the original story as you would like, because next week you're going to be writing your very own version. We look forward to seeing all of your work. I think this is going to be a really exciting week and we're going to have some amazing writing out for you guys. Please send us through on Dojo, Twitter or email all the work that you're doing, and we will look forward to reading it on Friday. Thank you.